As we move forward, we now shift from the unified, God-centered metaphysics of the Tree of Life into the realm of dualism. This is the point where Kabbalah's symbolic universe divides into its mirrored structures: holiness and impurity, light and concealment, the Sephirot and the Qliphoth. While classical Jewish Kabbalah presents these ideas within a theological framework, later esoteric and occult traditions expanded, reinterpreted, and sometimes distorted them. Because of this, the material we are about to explore represents the esoteric and often darker strata of the Kabbalistic tradition, the very concepts that later became foundational for Western occult systems. Hello, Valerie here. Let us jump right in. The dual nature Kabbalah approaches the concept of duality as a functional, unfolding illusion meant to facilitate free will and the creation of the universe. While it features heavily in cosmological descriptions like light versus darkness, or the tree of life versus the tree of knowledge, these are understood as stepping stones toward an ultimate, foundational oneness. In Kabbalah, the tree of death, often called the tree of knowledge or the Sitra Achra, the other side, acts as a shadow, counterfeit, or inverse mirror of the tree of life. Instead of being completely separate, the tree of death is generated when the energies of the tree of life become radically imbalanced, specifically when the left column breaks away from the right. The mirroring of the two trees. The tree of death is structured exactly like the tree of life, featuring 10 spheres and 22 connecting paths. However, while the tree of life is composed of Sephirot, divine emanations of light, the tree of death is composed of Qliphoth, husks or shells. So, what are the differences between the two? The tree of life. Spheres, Sephirot, vessels of divine light. Qliphoth, impure, rigid husks. Purpose: to reveal God, create life, and expand consciousness. To hide God, introduce mortality, and create boundaries. The pillars: right mercy, left severity, center balance, left deception, right excess, center extreme imbalance. How the pillars create death. The tree of death is born directly out of a failure of the central column, balance. The severed left column, in Kabbalistic cosmology, when the left pillar, Gevurah, judgment, becomes completely disconnected from the right pillar, Hesed, mercy, judgment is no longer sweetened by love. It undergoes a radical crystallization. The birth of evil. This isolated, hyper-restrictive energy hardens into the Qliphoth. Because it is entirely cut off from the central flowing stream of divine life, it becomes spiritually dead. The parasitic nature. Because the tree of death has no divine light of its own, it acts as a parasite. It wraps around the tree of life like bark or an unpeeled husk, trapping and stealing bits of divine light to sustain its own existence. The tree of knowledge concept. The Zohar, the foundational Kabbalistic text, clarifies that the tree of death is actually the tree of knowledge of good and evil. When balanced, the tree of life, reality is experienced as non-dual and unified. When split, the tree of death, reality fragments into opposites. Humanity falls into dualistic consciousness where life is separated from death, and good is separated from bad. By choosing to feed on the illusion of complete separation, humanity experiences spiritual and physical mortality. Ultimate non-duality. Despite the apparent conflict in our lower realm, Kabbalah ultimately teaches panentheism and non-duality. At the highest levels, everything is an emanation of God, and all dualities are destined to be reconciled in cosmic unity. The problem of evil, Qliphoth. Kabbalistic dualism proposes that evil or impurity, Qliphoth, literally husks, acts as a restrictive or protective shell. These husks hide the divine light, creating the necessary illusion of duality, and providing humanity with choices between good and bad. This duality represents a spiritual spectrum. The tree of knowledge governs our everyday material reality, where good and bad feel like opposing forces. The tree of life represents a state of absolute non-dual consciousness and ultimate unity. In Kabbalah, Thaumiel, meaning the twins of God, is the first of the Qliphoth or Qliphoth. The Qliphoth are the forces of impurity, chaos, and the shadow opposites of the 10 holy Sephirot on the Tree of Life. The shadow of Keter Thaumiel sits at the very top of the Tree of Death, the inverse of the Tree of Life, and acts as the dark, chaotic reflection of the Sephirah Keter, the crown. While Keter represents ultimate divine unity, absolute harmony, and the infinite light of God, Thaumiel represents duality. Instead of unity, Thaumiel represents everlasting conflict, separation, and struggle, contradiction. It represents the concept of division, where things pull apart from one another. The demons of Thaumiel. In mystical texts, Thaumiel is often depicted as a dual-headed entity with bat-like wings, or as two giant heads engaged in endless inner conflict. Its ruling archdemons or presiding figures are Satan and Moloch. These two figures embody opposing principles. Satan represents pure destruction and the breakdown of the self, while Moloch embodies the ego, survival, and the desire to rule. Modern pop culture. You might also be familiar with the term from the SCP Foundation, a popular collaborative writing project. The SCP Foundation uses terms like Keter and Thaumiel for its object classes. In that lore, the Thaumiel anomaly is a highly classified, secret entity or object that the Foundation utilizes to contain or counteract other dangerous anomalies. In Kabbalah, Gogiel, also commonly spelled Gagiel, Chikadel, or Chajadiel, is the second of the 10 Qliphoth, representing the hinderers or those who go forth into the place empty of God. Sitting just below Thaumiel on the Tree of Death, Gogiel functions as the direct demonic opposite and dark distortion of Chokmah, the Sephirah of divine wisdom, revelation, and raw creative energy. The shadow of Chokmah. While Chokmah represents pure, unadulterated divine insight and the unrestricted spark of creation, Gogiel represents the corruption of that power, false wisdom and deception. Instead of divine truth, Gogiel embodies intellectual arrogance, delusions of omniscience, outright lies, and optical illusions. The Hinderer. True to its name, this sphere acts as a spiritual roadblock. It inhibits forward momentum, stifles the creative process, and creates imaginary rules, anxieties, and obstacles to prevent spiritual evolution. Confusion of energy. In Chokmah, creative energy flows freely. In Gogiel, that energy becomes chaotic, stubborn, and confused, leading to spiritual blindness.